So No Man's Sky is going to get an important update this summer. Of course, we don't really know the exact release date window at the current time, but what we do know is that there's a bunch of leaks and important data mine details that kinda shed a bit more light of what we should expect for the upcoming near future for No Man's Sky. And also, let's not forget about that crossplay capability that was teased yesterday, and yes, that has been confirmed to be fully working. So let's jump into all of that with all of the information that we have at hand, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would be super awesome. I also want to remind everybody that we're still doing 2 giveaways for the month of June. One of them is for any 2020 release on any platform, and the winner can choose both the game as well as the platform he wants to play it on, and the second one is in partnership with Instant Gaming, so a huge shout out to them for making this possible. But you can also choose any game from their website, and the winners are going to be announced both here on this channel as well as via the email addresses provided. Again, all of the links are in the description box down below as well as in the pinned comment. Anyway, let's begin with the crossplay capabilities. Of course, we've talked about yesterday's experimental update that was actually several gigabytes in size, and we also later got the patch notes over here, which seem to indicate that there are some changes to the networking backend, though there isn't an explanation given whatsoever. What we do know is that there are indeed some new changes that were added, especially in the networking section in the pause menu in the PC experimental version of No Man's Sky. One of them, of course, and most obvious, is the fact that now everybody will get a friend code that is unique and specific to every single player out there. So this is basically what we are going to use in order to join other people's session on other platforms, as well as for them to join our session on our current platform. And yes, if you've been wondering, that has been confirmed to be working. Jordan276 reached out to me yesterday on Twitter, and he was able to confirm that he managed to join a friend's session while that friend was playing on the Xbox Game Pass version of No Man's Sky, which by the way is still in beta at the current time, while Jordan was on the Steam experimental version of No Man's Sky. So this is actually some really awesome news. Of course, from this screenshot you can also see that each one of them has an icon next to their name that indicates what platform they are playing on. One of them is on Steam while the other one is on the Game Pass, but recent data mines have showcased that crossplay is going to be available and will work between all of the platforms. From the icons that I was able to data mine in game, it seems that this is going to be possible both for the Steam and Xbox Game Pass version of the game, as well as GOG and PS4 likewise, which honestly opens up so many gameplay possibilities, but more on that in just a little bit. This of course brings us to that content update that is allegedly going to release later this month. I'm saying allegedly because we don't have too much information on that. The only piece of official information we have is from Hello Games development update number 11 that indicated that there's going to be some brand new lore and story content added in June, and that was something that the same person behind the Alice Rises story in 2017 is working on it, and that was one of the highest quality stories that were ever added in this game since 2016. So that already sounds exciting, but apparently one of the leaks that was posted on 4chan yesterday seems to suggest that this mid-June update is going to have much more than just some story and lore. And as always, take this with a grain of salt. It goes without saying that nothing has been confirmed yet, and I'm also thinking that many of the things showcased in the leak kinda seem a little bit too convenient at this point. Regardless of that, I'm going to cover it anyway and then later on give my 2 cents about it. So the leaker suggests that the content update is going to drop mid-June and is going to be linked to the weekend mission that was already announced by Hello Games in the recent development update. It also suggests that Hello Games has been working on an ambitious upgrade to the procedural generation to improve terrain diversity and formation, new biomes and more alien planets, as well as new flora and fauna that will make more sense based on the planet environment, as well as including new assets for all of these at the same time, which again sounds very convenient since this is something that we've been talking about for a very long time at this point. There's also some new combat elements according to the leak, including new race of enemies that's going to be in the game, improvements to both on foot and ship combat, and there's also some plans for next gen ports and upgrades, but this is apparently going to happen later into the next console cycle. cycle. Again, take this with a grain of salt, but we do have some other data mined information that seems to kinda go hand in hand with this as well. For that, I'm going to post a link to THTDI's video here on YouTube. He is also a YouTuber that covers No Man's Sky, and he data mined a bit of those files in No Man's Sky that also seem to kinda confirm a little bit of that leak that I was talking about earlier. And I did check these files for myself as well, and the folders that are present in there, and many of these actually are indeed over there. Like, there's a lot of mentions of different biomes that we haven't even seen or heard of before. Like, for example, there's mentions of swamps, glowing rainforest, crystal biomes, some alpine biomes as well, and a lot of other stuff that maybe Hello Games was planning to add at some point, though they never had the time up until recently, and maybe they are finally deciding to add these in the game in a future update, hopefully as early as possible. And there's a ton more in there as well. We even have this 3D rendering of an alligator that probably was never added in game. At the very least, I never saw it before. It could be that Hello Games is adding some new creatures, aiming for some new really cool creatures with that proc gen, so I'm really curious to see if that's going to be the case. But again, a lot more in THTDI's video in the links down below. Again, all of this to be taken with a massive grain of salt, because we have some conflicting information out there. Like, for example, Redmast, which is one of the biggest modders in the No Man's Sky modding scene and one of the creators of some of the best mods out there, he was able to actually disprove this information as being new, and in fact it seems that a lot of what was shown in THTDI's video was actually old information or old files, even as old as the game itself, and some of these were present since day one. Most recently though, we have a comment from the user called Brandon on Reddit, which was able to verify that even though those files were indeed in the game since day one, they were mostly for testing purposes. Some of them were very recently edited, even updated, which would indeed suggest that Hello Games is preparing something with them and is planning to feature them in hopefully an upcoming update. Again, a massive grain of salt. I also have my doubts about that leak as well. Like, for example, at one point the leaker suggests that his source wasn't sure on the crossplay possibly being current gen or only happening next gen, though this was posted before we already knew that the crossplay is already in the game, it's already usable, and it's just a matter of days, weeks at most, until we actually get to play it. Anyway, this brings us to our final point, which is about that crossplay effect on gameplay. And I think that many people out there tend to downplay the importance of crossplay for a game like No Man's Sky. Of course, being able to play with your friends on the other platforms is the obvious one and like the main reason why you're going to want to use crossplay in the first place, but there's other in there as well that will change the gameplay too. Like, for example, I really enjoy checking other people's bases and visiting their creations, which isn't something that happens too often on the PC, which is my main platform. Most of the best bases out there that have ever been created actually exist on the consoles, and to be more specific, on the PS4. For some reason, the base building scene on the PS4 and the consoles in general are way better than the ones on the PC, and I suspect that the reason for that is because like the player base is much larger on those platforms and also way more involved than the one on the PC, which is still sizable, by the way. Just the Steam version has like 10,000 players almost every day, so it's still quite a big and sizable population too. So with the introduction of crossplay, somebody like me would finally be able to check out these bases without having to go through the restrictions of my PS4 Pro version of the game. Like, for example, having to suffer really low FPS in a base that is very detailed, like some of those city bases that I've covered in the past. But it would extend to much more than that. Like, what would happen, for example, if you joined a person that's on the console while you're playing on the PC on much better hardware and you're starting to build a base? Even something like a PS4 Pro, which is at its end of the cycle, struggles with more complex bases, really drops with FPS over there, and it would likely be unplayable for somebody like that if he joined with, for example, a PC user who would be able to build way over those capabilities and still not suffer too much of a performance hit. But it extends to way more than that. We could also finally get something like a possible unified universe and not have the same version of the same universe, different different and distinct for every single platform out there. So just imagine going into a system and you would find the creation of somebody who made it on the console version of it or GOG version of it, and I would also argue that people who bought the game on GOG would finally get to experience a much better multiplayer, but this extends to way more than that. Anyway, Hello Games is likely going to drop with a development update really soon, or a blog post that's going to bring all of the information that we're going to need. Hopefully it's going to happen next week. That is kind of like my prediction, but it remains to be seen. In the meantime, let me know down below, are you excited for the content update that's going to happen in No Man's Sky this summer? If so, what's your top feature that you want to see? In the meantime, as always, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Also follow me on Twitter if you want to stay in touch and just talk about gaming in general, and I will see you guys in the next one.